right, we're back. Episode, we don't know what episode it is.
whatever episode you want to call it.
I keep saying that. I'm just going to quit it. We're back for Cutler Cast. But, so I wanted to do this. We came in the office today, and we were talking about this because we have a travel weekend coming up for the Bev Francis event this weekend.
Are you excited?
You know what? I always get excited for this because it's kind of a kickoff of, my East Coast events. And, April's a crazy month for me because I promote 2 events here in Vegas. Is going to be April 8th, and then April 29th is the Boston event.
I didn't realize you got 2 this month, and in the middle is Fibo. So there's a Europe trip in the middle.
Yeah, so in April is a double Cutler. It's actually both J. Cutler Classics. One's in Vegas, one's in Mass. And then we go to Fibo. There was something else that came up, though. I think someone else inquired about, the weekend after
Fibo.
The
world's strongest man's the week after, so I got to go to.
That's during the week, or is it a weekend?
It starts on a Tuesday, and it starts on a Tuesday, and it goes to the weekend. But they have prelims the first 3 days, and then the finals are Saturday and Sunday. Mm-hmm. But I will be in Germany with you. That will leave Wednesday, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then I go to Italy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then I fly home for 1 day. Change stuff, and then I fly to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Yeah,
it's a crazy schedule, but you just announced we're going to be at Fibo, so I will be attending Fibo actually for the Fibo Power event. They will be, having meet and greets and I think a couple seminars, and we always get excited to go over to Fibo. I hit up Sasha for the gym and everything because we go and train and everything, and with the time change, that's the crazy thing about our travel is that. We seem to always find time to go to the gym, no matter what, our what kind of thing we're going, what's going on. I know our travel schedule is going to be super tough, right? But we've been trying to plan the flights over there, and we try to land with enough time that we can kind of get our feet on the ground a little bit.
Yeah,
and then that's a crazy expo because it's 3 or 4 days. I think it's actually a 4-day event.
I think the first day is the gym equipment stuff or some VR buyers or something, and then there's 3 days.
And then it's 3 days, but it's the fans look forward to it. And I know Germany's suffered a lot with the
COVID
lockdowns.
Germany, the last couple times we went over to Europe, they still had restrictions because we flew there when we went to the UK and we had to wear masks still. This was only 4 months ago.
Yeah.
We still had to wear masks because of the flight went through Germany. So, and going to Fibo's, I've always thought it's just different because people that have never been to these expos overseas, they see the Olympia or how big it is, or they see how big the LA Fit Expo is, or the Arnold's huge, but
it's 7 halls. 7 halls.
Fibo's 5 times the size of all of them.
I think it's 7 different buildings.
And some of them are 2 stories.
Yeah, so it's a crazy, crazy turnout. We have a lot of good memories there. We've gone from, I went for my first one in 99. I remember going there for Gold's Gym, and I didn't speak, I didn't know anything. And I got on a subway or something. And they were I didn't know when to get off because it kept saying in German, and I was like, is this my stop? And I was asking people, no one spoke English back then. It was wasn't, as common of a language. And of course, I went there for Gold's Gym. It was huge, the experience. And then I went for all the brands over the years. And if you remember some of the old footage of the guys guest posing, Yates and Victor Richards and all those guys.
That famous guest posing with Victor Richards made Dorian Yates look like a little kid.
It was, those guys used to go and, they used to sell stacks of 8x10s over there. People used to make a fortune. Today it's, obviously it's expanded and it's, more of a health and wellness expo. It's not just strictly bodybuilding, but a lot of our people are going back there, which is great. And I'm fortunate to be able to work with them and be able to go back. I enjoy going actually.
I keep thinking every time I think of Fibo, that last time when we got stuck in that same Uber twice with the guy that couldn't speak English and he dropped us off in some BS alley.
We were trying to find a restaurant to eat, and but you mentioned that busy schedule, and we talked about this event this weekend. We're going to Bev's event. It's a free event, so it's unlimited.
How long you been doing
attendance?
This for?
Well, it's funny how this started. Okay, this started as I remember Steve and I obviously had a relationship because he was the head judge and he had me guest pose every year at the Bev Francis show. He'd bring out me and Coleman to guest pose. So we'd kind of go head to head. And that was truly our last appearance before we did the Olympia. So it was always, beginning of June, you came to see me, yes.
I came when you jumped on Ronnie's back. I was at that guest posing.
So with me piggybacking with Ronnie.
Yeah.
So, we would do the Mannion show, Pittsburgh in May, and then I would do the Lonnie Teeper. You know what? Lonnie Teeper might have been the last one actually in California, but that was our last real travel.
That was with you and him together though.
Yes,
you did Lonnie's by yourself.
He came one year to Lonnie's, but that was the last showdown of us prior to us going into full prep, and it started that relationship, and then obviously Steve was a head judge, so I'd go to him for advices and everything else. But we became friendly, and I was traveling back and forth. I'd go out, east to see my family, and I would spend some birthdays with Steve. His birthday was in December every year. So we started this. I said, why don't we do a meet and greet at your gym? Everyone wants to come out to the Mecca, East Coast Mecca, and we decided to start this whole Jay Cutler meet and greet thing. And eventually, as we started doing these workshops, it turned into now these NPC workshops, which now you see are popping up everywhere, where they bring in some figure people and they coach people or kind of give instruction. This is what this division is going to do. And now with so many, back then it was only men's and women's bodybuilding, right? Yeah. So now, of course, you bring in a physique. We have Sadiqa there. We have Sean Clarita for the 212. And then Rish is going for wellness. And
I know some people from Florida are coming up. Some bikini girls.
Yeah, so I mean, it's always a great kickoff of the season. And you went last year. I think it snowed last year, actually. This year, I just checked. It's so funny. I checked the weather this morning, and I'm like, I pray because I'm actually gonna hang out on the East Coast. My mom doesn't watch this podcast, but I'm actually surprising my mom, who turns 82 in March.
Send this to her.
Yeah, she doesn't watch the podcast, but I'm going and surprising her. So I'm flying over Saturday evening over to Mass, and I'm going to go visit my mom for a couple of days, see my brothers, and kind of check out. And I'm kind of iffy about going on the East Coast in the wintertime. I mean, the reason I moved west, just because of the weather.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just realizing this. You never go in the summer. You go October. The weather's usually not good.
I go
April. It's usually not good.
Well, we talked. Do you remember we talked about this? And I said, I'm going all the way to New York, and obviously Angie's coming. The dogs. And I'm like, maybe I should pop over to Mass. I didn't go for Christmas or Thanksgiving. You're like, dude, you should go. You don't go enough. And I told my whole family, I'll be over when it's a little more convenient. And obviously we talk about the travel and how busy the airports are. So I didn't want to go during that time. So I took this opportunity to kind of pop over when I didn't have a lot going on.
So how many years is this now that you've been doing this with Steve?
I've lost count, to be honest.
It's over 10 years, right?
I don't know if it's been not the workshop. Over for the appearance, yes. But not
you've been going the first February for as far back as I can remember, for a long time. And it was just an appearance before, and now it
was just an appearance, and now it's turned into this whole big workshop. And how many people you think would show up there?
Over 500 for sure.
Yeah.
Because that back room is packed, but the whole gym is just packed. And I don't know if I'm speaking, I think Steve, it's like an open gym day, right?
No, he charges to come in and train, I think.
Okay, I'm not sure the
but
details.
The event is free, so busy, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, the event's free, so you can get some free and good information. And it's just, the last year we went in the day before, we went and trained. And this is what I always say about a good business owner. Steve has one of the most popular gyms in the world, and you and I are training there. He goes out of his way to come down and say, hey, guys, what do you think of the gym? What can I do to make it better? Mm-hmm. I'll never forget that.
He's got a lot of new equipment in there and some of the relationships that you have.
Yeah. I mean, you know what it is, though? It's so many people have successful businesses, and they think, I'm doing good, I'm going to leave it alone. He doesn't have to make it better. It's a staple. It's an iconic gym, but he still is saying, how can I make it even better?
He wants his name of the Bev Francis gym to be the #1 gym in the country. And that's why he's constantly trying to
just think of this right now. Make an argument that it's not.
Well, we have these two meccas, right? Which use the word mecca. I know other gyms do, but you talked about the East and the West, right? And, the next big gym comes along. We always travel and we say, we train, we trained at Oxygen around the world and
all over the world.
And you wonder, like, okay, you look at a gym and you say, why do you go to a gym? Okay. Is it the culture? Is it the location? Is it the gym equipment? I mean,
for me personally, it's the equipment. Steve
checks off
everything.
Like it's the atmosphere. Obviously the location where it is, people fly in there, they visit. He's got everything, sports shop. He's got everything there, right? Yep. But more importantly, he pays attention to the equipment that's there. Yep. Some old school stuff, new age stuff. He's usually there, so like his presence is really, really solid for people, especially the competitors that go in there. Because listen, who wouldn't want to have Steve take a look at him and say, hey, you're working on this or that? He's the biggest show promoter. I mean, he's partnered with me on those shows.
Have up there?
But he's the chairperson. I mean, both
he's got 20 plus.
Yeah,
maybe.
So I mean, he holds every event there. So anyone that goes to any kind of a NPC or IFBB related event in that region, they have some sort of contact.
And in
with
my
Steve.
opinion, outside of the Arnold and the Olympia, he has the most prestigious show.
Let's talk. Yeah, so we talk about the shows, okay, and the Olympia is obviously the biggest title, right? Arnold Classic we have coming up. Okay, we don't have our schedule yet. We talked a little bit about that.
Yeah,
we are going to be present there coming up the first week of March. Okay. Everyone kind of picks about like what the biggest contest is, but damn, the Arnold this year is almost as much prize money for the men's open as the Mr. Olympia. And if you remember back when I did it, remember the Olympia was 100 or 110.
110 or 150, yeah.
And the Arnold was paying 100. I think it was only 10 grand more. And then once the Arnold started giving out the H2 Hummers, the Olympia started adding the Escalade.
Escalade, yep. For 1 or 2 years.
Yes. And then obviously the money's bumped up, and the Arnold money bumped up to 130. It's been 130 until recently it bumped up to 2.
2 years ago to 2, and now it's at 3.
And now it's at 300. And they're not going backwards, right?
I have a feeling they're going to bump it up even more. I just have this feeling. Yeah, man, because it's
for other divisions or the men's open.
I don't have any inside information or anything, but if I remember right, and I could be completely off on this, didn't Arnold not take the prize money higher out of respect for Joe Weider?
I don't know. I always thought that it couldn't overrule the Olympia. That was my thought.
But remember,
but I don't think that's the truth.
I think back then Joe wouldn't allow it to.
Probably
because
not.
He owned the Olympia, but now who's to say it couldn't if he wanted?
Probably not. I mean, probably it's
I don't know if that's a rule.
I guess it's about how much sponsorship comes in, how much recognition. I mean, obviously with Arnold's names, he has a lot of influence, right?
And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but think of the shows you've won. You won 4 Olympias, and you've won 3 Arnolds.
Yeah, you can see the Arnold trophies.
Yeah, you can see them right back here. And I know being Mr. Olympia is the ultimate goal, but just explain what that was like the first time you won an Arnold and you looked over and you saw Arnold, because he was younger then.
No, his kids.
Walking across.
Maria Shriver.
Do you remember that moment? What happened?
I mean, it was just, like I said, it's always an honor to be there, but remember, I hadn't won an Olympia title yet, so this was the biggest title. I already won the Night of Champions, which is now New York Pro. Mm-hmm. So you kind of take a stepping stone forward, and this was just, okay, this is another check on that list, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't realize at that point, because I literally thought, I had just got second at the Olympia, very controversial, won the Arnold within a 4-month span. I thought I was well on the way to winning Olympia next go-around, right? I sat out 02, came back in 03, and I totally thought I was going to win the contest. And I didn't realize it was going to be delayed a few years before I actually won that title. So that Arnold every year meant so much to me. But, yes, Arnold was a huge reason people attended the show, and the name was so large. But at the same time, like, I was looking at the stepping stone of, like, to Mount Olympus or building the legacy in bodybuilding. And I think that if I just won 4 Mr. Olympias, and no Arnolds, would my name be what it is? Oh. Because I had that hype so much, because time and time again, I defended a title or positioning. And think about it. I went to the Arnold every year and won, and I went to the Olympia and got second. Then I'd go to the Arnold and win, and go to the Olympia and get second. So I had this 1-2 position for quite some time, and I had to deal with a lot of hype, and that's one thing with this show. Like, we're falling into 4 weeks out from the Arnold now, coming this weekend, and I listened to, well, so and so is going to win. I mean, we talk about it on this podcast. I mean, I saw Andrew. Andrew's here training right now, and I mean, we saw him train the other day. I got to sit and witness that, and we got to film a little bit of it. But that was awesome to see. But like, that's a big question mark. Is like, as much as I see Nick Walker on a daily basis, and I said on this podcast, I feel Nick's going to win. We don't really know, right? Until the day of. But there's a lot of names in there. A Bonnick who's been there and won before, and
there's
Big Rami.
There's more name in this.
Samson's out front run, like Clarita. Like, I don't want to disregard any, but I'm just talking just off the top of my mind. Where every year, like, it was me and Cormier, like, we finished first and second. So it was kind of like you kind of knew who the competition. There wasn't any new faces coming into that show like, oh, this guy's going to come win it. Like, it was like me, Cormier, Dexter, like that mix, right? And then eventually, Kai Green and Phil came up through that rank, which I was done competing by that point. And Ronnie Coleman never touched it again after he almost lost there. Like, the Olympia, the year, I almost beat him, right? 01. So you just didn't have as much, like I mentioned, bodybuilding's in a very unique time right now. But that time, the problem with bodybuilding today, we don't realize how cool last year and this year are, because we had so many new bodies, exciting bodies, uncertainty. But dude, we know after 1 or 2 more years, like these guys we're all talking about are going to kind of fall into place.
It'll settle in.
And you're either going to say, well, he can't get it right, or he can, or it's like the Cedric effect, right? Cedric, we always thought, oh, he was going to be the next level, take it to the next level, and it went back and forth. I mean, we saw it with Dennis Wolf, right? He rose up, and then, he kind of just never really crossed over a certain line. Phil Heath, we saw kind of dominate, and Kai Green we got excited about too, because here's an Arnold Classic winner, go to the Olympia, he was second. I mean, he's held position also back and forth with Phil. But we haven't seen this many exciting faces because we don't know much about Andrew Jack. We don't know much about Samson, right? We don't know a lot about those guys. Nick Walker's still kind of like a new face. Yeah.
I'm going to say this, and some people might think this is controversial. How is this not the most competitive, unique show ever?
I mean, when I saw Nick the other day in the gym, he said, this is not a bad Arnold.
No.
Like, this thing, we might have had 8 guys originally register and fall back to 6, but now that, dude,
think of
the
this.
6 faces that people are focusing on,
think
or
of this.
7.
This is why I say, show me a more unique competitive show ever, not just Arnold. You have Nick, who's won an Arnold Classic.
Bonnick
has won 2. Rami's won 2 Olympias. Sean Clarita's won 212 Olympias.
And he's won an Arnold too, Rami, overseas.
Rami's won 2 overseas, right? Brazil and Spain.
Okay.
But Kamal has won an Olympia in his division. Clarita's won 2 Olympias.
Current, yeah.
So and now you got Andrew Jack and Samson, who are these anomalies that we all know, if they pull it together, it's a hypothetical. Who knows where they could?
But you got Patrick Moore, you got Patrick Moore in there, crazy. You got Justin Rodriguez. You had like a lot of guys that aren't slouches.
So
right?
Think of it like this: imagine the person I feel the worst for is Steve, because he has to legitimately say, "Well, Andrew Jack's 6'1", 290 something. Sean Clarita's this size. Kamal's this size. Nick's this size. Every one of these bodies are completely different. How do you judge it?" And I'm glad I'm not the one. I'll just sit back and watch it unfold. But imagine how difficult that is to judge it, because this is as apple as oranges.
Where's Clarita and Kamal going to fall? That's the question.
Just imagine. I just want to see Clarita stand between Samson and Andrew.
You know what's funny, though, is like this whole 212, crossover thing.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to me, because I think these guys have more experience in tuning their bodies in than the open guys.
Of course.
Because they had to reach that, there's a plateau, right?
Yeah.
And when you have that plateau, okay, I can't push over a certain amount. Now, granted, I'm sure a Kamal or Clarita's, maybe they're going to be bigger than what their weight cap was, right, at these other contests. But
Clarita's won't, but Kamal's will.
Of course. Well, no, Clarita may compete 5 pounds bigger.
No, he could, but he's way under the weight cap.
Because he's probably going to look at, okay, I'm competing with some bigger guys. Do I want to be ripped down and shredded, or do I want to be fuller and shredded? Because he can do a little of both, right? He doesn't have to over deplete himself to challenge because he knows everyone around him is super lean and shredded.
Yeah.
Where some of these guys, the bigger guys are fuller and rounder, right? Yeah. So it's kind of a tricky thing, but it's a good way to him to practice his body. But they all have a cap where they'll push themselves too. But are we going to see the 212 start to dominate the open class? That's the question. Because Bonnick was a prime example.
Hottie was 212.
Yeah, like are we going to see a shift now where people always have this thing like the big guys are done, and then a big guy like a Rami comes along and wins the Olympia. When Sean Roden years prior was like,
do you think they should get rid of 212?
You know what? You're going to get some stars in there. I know, like Flex Lewis, like kind of obviously led that division. Hottie pulled out, like he could have been a superstar in that division, and Derek, decided to go to open, which was a fabulous.
So
choice,
the reason I asked that is the only person that I've seen that really would normally stay there would be Clarita. Because he competes at 190.
I think it's like saying, you should get rid of physique versus figure with women's side, or wellness. But now it's
the same thing. They're just smaller. The same criteria.
Yeah. I think that everyone has their place. I mean, we talk about men's physique because, with those guys, like there's a division for everyone, whether it's classic, men's physique, bodybuilding.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is there a legit argument to have this division when these guys, like a men's physique guy can't go compete in the open? They'll get destroyed. No, but a 212 guy can.
Yeah, I think it gives, like, there's people that are going to use as a stepping stone. Like it's it's molding the superstars. It's kind of like going up in the amateurs and then moving up into the pro ranks. Like it's maybe a stepping stone for some guys, but it may be a home for everyone. Like a Flex Lewis who won 7 times.
Yeah.
Like Flex, why didn't he go to open after his 4th or 5th victory?
I know.
You know what I mean? And then when he did announce he was going to go, it just never transpired, right? Yeah. Where it was like Hottie just was doing 212.
Hottie never did 212 at the Olympia.
Yes, but he went right to an open show and he fared well. He won, or he got second, or
he won it. Yeah, he won, and then he went.
He gets second to Cedric. No, who in Vancouver? What did he win in Vancouver, or do you remember?
No, he won Vancouver. That's where he qualified. Okay. He did the San Marino show years ago,
and he lost to
Cedric, but he beat Brandon.
Okay, yeah,
he got second, and that was in San Marino. But his first Olympia, he could do open or 212.
I mean, Jose Raymond jumped out of the division and placed at the Legions one year.
Guy competed in Australia when we were there.
So, I mean, it's just, I think the division still has its place. I would never, one thing for me, speaking as a bodybuilder, like, I try to keep it fair, and that's one thing. I'm a promoter, and I work within the organization, but I'll always speak, like, with the athlete mindset. Okay, how would I accept this if I was competitive today, right? I mean, it's like the contracts, bro. I think that, like, you owning a supplement brand and, like having a company without energy or whatever that, like, if I had an athlete under sports nutrition brand and, there was an outside deal, just like in my Muscle Tech contract, I actually had in there that if Gatorade approached me to do, Gatorade, I would have had that opportunity. And I had left that open. But at the same time, like, I have to think about the athletes as much as I think about, like, the business side too.
Yeah.
Because what's fair is fair, right?
No, I get it. No, it is. I see certain people will stay in there, but I do think that a lot of the stars in 212, if they're hovering around that, eventually they're going to say, well, wait a minute here. We got to get stupid peeled in our division, and that at the upper level is lacking in a lot of shows. So let's take this crazy conditioning, and we can add 5 or 6 or 7 pounds
and come in and beat
because
people.
One thing that I used to always say, it would kind of annoy me. Like let's take Flex Lewis, for example. He would go to the press conference. What are you going to do this year different? And they'd ask him this seriously. And I'd think to myself, he was 211 210.9 last year. What the hell do you think difference does he make? He can't.
Yeah.
He's capped out. There's only so much he can do. He's going to do what he did last year, and he's going to win. So I think now there's a lot of guys that are saying, you know what? I can gain that 10 pounds, and I can be competitive at 225 to where they can be competitive where years before maybe they didn't think they could be. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a hell of a contest, but, we talk about the top shows, and, we talked about the New York Pro. So the New York Pro is in May. Mm-hmm. And I know coming up in the ranks, like you took steps in tiers, but remember, there wasn't a lot of miscellaneous contests that we have now.
Yeah.
So, like, we were very limited. I only looked at the U.S. shows, so it was like, okay, Night of Champions or New York Pro, Arnold Classic, Ironman. Like, we always talk about this, the few shows that they did have, right? Canada show had a show. But you had a certain way you could get in. Back then they qualified. Now I guess, the points are gone now, correct?
Yes.
They got rid of points.
I don't know if that won't make much of a difference.
It won't, yeah.
Because it was 3 people.
There's still a lot of shows.
There's still going to be 30-plus guys in the show. This year will be a little – it's not 15
But the difference with the Arnold is it's an invitational, right?
Yes.
So when you have an invitational, like, you do limit the competitors. So obviously your backstage area is going to be a less chaotic for these guys. And, live streams, obviously, the way that a lot of these contests are running now. Who would have thought 20 years ago, live stream, right? That ideally what I see the opportunity for bodybuilding to reach a worldwide audience is these live streams. Yeah. Because you're only going to fit so many people in the seats, especially after, we had a pandemic. People couldn't travel. The shows, didn't happen. The Arnold still happened, right?
Twice, yeah.
So
once with no.
So the live streaming was proper. So that's why we constantly, look at, even with some of my shows, like, we do live stream, right? So people can actually watch it. The family and friends that maybe are away or living in different places, they can't necessarily attend those shows. So that's where you're going to see a lot of these expansion. Mm-hmm. A lot of the opportunity is going to become because of the live stream. So obviously we're still working to perfect that. Like, I mean, the budget for the Arnold live stream is just crazy.
Insane. I actually was chit-chatting with the guy that runs it today.
Yeah, so I know right now, I mean, they're doing early access to, sign up through the Arnold Classic website. So I encourage anyone to go on there and we'll be in the house the whole weekend. We do have a schedule there.
Yeah, we'll release the schedule out probably 2 weeks out or something like that. It's still getting finalized.
But I always look forward to this show because, people travel from we always talk about the location and how it works well for people because they can drive to.
There's 40 million people within 5 hours, so it's a good spot. Something I've said this a lot of times, and a lot of these young guys or young competitors don't think about this, but I've always felt the road through the Olympia start going through New York and then going through Columbus before you earn that ultimate respect on the Olympia stage.
Yeah, well, it's time.
Think about it. What top guy doesn't have a New York Pro or a Night of Champions, or at least if they didn't win an Arnold, were really competitive at the only top guy that never won in Ohio that I can think of was Phil.
But he still was second.
Yes. He got second.
But he won the
Arnold
New York Pro.
He won the New York Pro. He won the Arnold's Europe. But that Arnold Europe that Phil won had all the Olympia guys. It was the same caliber. And I remember because, Arnold walked across. I remember Phil saying, "This was my bucket list to win an award and have you hand it to me." But I've noticed that a lot of the guys, the younger people now, I don't know if they understand that history.
Yeah,
because it's
funny because, you look at Ronnie Coleman, Kevin Leverone.
They won both.
Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier.
Dexter came back to win a New York Pro like 3 years ago because he said, "I don't have that title."
Paul Dillette won it back in the eras. Did Dorian Yates win it?
Wasn't that his first show?
I think he got second, though.
Against, I forgot.
Benaziza?
I think so. New York was his first show, pro show when he got second. That's when he realized. I'm pretty sure.
But, we have a lot of other contests now, and obviously the international guys,
But you have, and not many people know this, you have the actual NOC ring.
Yeah.
And how I don't know.
Still sits in the original case.
What was the last year?
I'm not sure what it was, but we don't talk about the NOC because Steve runs that New York Pro now.
I mean, it's still it's the same prestigious show. But so let's talk about you're gonna be 50 soon. So let's talk
doing
about
this Fit for 50
what's going on
challenge.
with
A lot
this
of
Fit
people
for
are a little
50?
confused about this. Actually, I walked into Elevation that Peter's like, so tell me about this 50 thing.
But before you say this, I don't know how well it's going because last night you called me and you were getting double doubles and French fries.
I'm on the way to getting bigger now, right? So I'm trying to eat my meals. As you see, I have meals. I have trifecta meals sitting in the fridge here, back here. So what my goal right now is to eat 5 portionate meals a day. I'd like to go to 6, okay?
Okay.
Now, I backed down the morning cardio, although I did do it this morning, and I did do it yesterday. I did 20 minutes each day. I did a little after the weight session last night. So ideally, I'm trying to build up the body, get some real, I guess, a little size, but not really try to put on weight, if that makes sense. I want to get a little fullness. The whole real challenge starts like May, June, because August is the date. So I'm going to treat it like I'm going to start like getting closer to a competition type.
After Fibo, you'll go hard.
After Fibo, but I'm trying to eat enough. And because of our travel, we went to Tampa. It was just really difficult. So you saw I packed the meals with me when we flew to Tampa last week. So I'm just trying not to miss the meals. So I'm being a little more choosy about my travel schedule also because I want to document this, not only through the media stuff, but it's influencing a lot of people around me, not only because they may not be turning 50, but I want to prove like, hey, I can still do this. Like age is just a number, but at the same time, like it gives people motivation to say, well, if Jay's doing it, I'll try to do just a portion of it and just get in better shape. And it seems like everyone wants to build up for the summer, right, and get in their best shape possible. So I'm trying to just really challenge myself in being the best shape I've been in 10 years. Not ever, because we all know, like, what's the peak? What's people's opinions on what my best ever was?
Are you going to hire a guru?
I don't know if I would hire someone. I might have someone help me track what I eat, because I think if someone tells me...
for that too.
I know, but if someone tells me, eat this, eat that, which is another thing with trifecta, we're perfecting the trifecta meals.
We have crazy. I have no excuse.
So. But we have crazy like stuff happening with that, right? So I do need accountability, because if I asked you how many days, like you say, I'm gonna get on a better diet, what's like the hardest
thing for me is, and I know people would say, I can't believe that I forget to eat. When I was younger,
I brought you shrimp, by the way.
Okay, I'll eat it.
So
when I was younger and I was training like crazy, I could probably eat damn near as much as you and Brian Shaw did. And now
I still think you overeat though.
I do. So what I've been doing is now, the new trifecta meat comes in 4-ounce portions.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So now I only eat that. So I open up whether it's chicken, steak, bison, whatever it is. I only do that, and then I do a cup of carbs. But I'm still having a hard time getting all the meals down.
This is the whole thing, okay? So for our viewers and listeners, you have to eat smaller portion meals a day, okay? The 3 meals a day, the general American living, is not the best way to approach this. So ideally, if I look back at all my success over the last 30-plus years, when I went to Chris Aceto, who was my nutrition person early on from 18 forward, I worked with him and Hani in my career. He wrote out a 6-meal-a-day plan. Okay, it was meal 1 through 6. I taped it on my refrigerator, and I followed that exact order every single day. It was exact tea. So it was like egg whites and oatmeal for breakfast. Meal 2 was chicken and rice. Meal 3 was a steak and baked potato. Meal 4 was another chicken and rice. Meal 5, chicken, like potato and some vegetables, and then meal 6 was like egg whites. I remember exactly what it was. My mom still actually has the actual grocery lists and everything I used to give her, but I followed that religiously. Mm-hmm. And when I was in my prime of bodybuilding, I focused mainly when I trained for every single Mr. Olympia victory or loss was around 6 or 7 meals. Okay. The difference with Hani and Chris, Hani liked 7 meals, Chris like 6.
Was
now,
it the
granted,
same calories?
Off season, no, Chris was all over the place, where Hani was a little more on the consistent basis. We didn't have as many swing days. He kind of would make some adjustments, but Chris, we worked on a high, low, medium carb day, which means on the low carbs, the protein would go higher. He liked very low fats, where Hani liked adding some fats in there. which was a little different for me. So people always ask, what was the difference between the two? It's hard to say because there was just a few adjustments all the way through. But the most important thing was it was based on 6 or 7 meals. And I would eat every 2 hours to 2.5 hours. Seemed like when I stretch over 2.5, I get really hungry. And, remember, I'm running a big body at the time. So ideally, that's how I try to preach to everyone. And anyone I help with a nutrition program, I put them on a 5 to 6 meal a day diet. If they eat less than that, I feel you're not going to benefit as much. And if you ask me why, it's the metabolism. And that's the biggest issue. Like you get up in the morning, you do your fasted carb. I don't know if you're still doing it, but you need to eat portionate smaller meals. You can't just gorge yourself with 1 or 2 big meals.
I've been fasting in the mornings.
I know, but I was thinking that. I was on the treadmill this morning, and I was thinking, I wonder if Matt still gets up and does his cardio in the morning. And you're not doing it as much now?
Maybe the last 3 weeks I have.
Are you in a slump right now, you think? Or
No. You know what it is? I have a lot of work stuff to do. And when I get going on stuff, I don't want to stop.
Does bodybuilding people motivate you more or less than they used to?
They don't. No.
Like you used to look at the books and
yeah. When I was younger, because
you paid attention to all.
Yeah, because when you were in the trenches of that, look, I didn't compete, but I used to train.
Do you think,
just as heavy as anyone else?
Why did you get in the gym though? Like, tell me what. If you look back at let's say you trained for 20 years. If
why did I first get in the gym? I can tell you.
Okay, why did you first get in?
So when I was 16, I was probably 5'3", and I was about 120 pounds. And I've always been a smart ass. So to a certain degree, I was the little guy. And I remember some of the bigger football players used to push me around because I was small.
Yeah.
And my sophomore year, at the end of summer, at the end of the school year, I was at same height. That summer, my mom ended up moving to northern Wisconsin, and my mom's boyfriend at the time moved to the southern part. And I stayed by myself for 2 months. And every night I went to bed, and I remembered the pain I was in. I didn't know what it was, but I didn't see my family for 2 months. In 60 days, I grew to 6'1", and I filled out. My shoulders got wider and whatnot. And when I moved to northern Wisconsin, because I was a knucklehead and got in trouble, and I was forced to move to the north. When I moved to northern Wisconsin, I started working at this local Sea-Doo 4-wheeler place. And I remember washing some of the boats, and one of the guys that was there was a bodybuilder. And he would say to me, he's like, man, your legs are separated, because I was a basketball player. Mm-hmm. Your shoulders are capped, and I never worked out in my life. So he's like, you should come start working out with me. And that's what got me going. Now, my mom, when I was young, she had 2 bodybuilders that were roommates of ours. They actually trained and competed, and my mom was into fitness, so I was always around it. But that was the first time that I really.
And your mom's pretty young, right?
My mom's 60 and I'm 44.
Yeah.
So that's when I first got around it, and I noticed success immediately. Mm-hmm. And by the time I was, I was going to go play basketball in college, and I snapped my ankle, and I started training. So from the time I was 18 till I was 20. By the time I was 20, I was 225. And I remember naturally at 20 years old, I could do 315 for 10. I just had natural strength. So that's what kind of got me going. And as you start seeing results, you want to learn more and more and more and more. And that's what did it. But the original reason was I wanted to get bigger because I was so tiny. So
you were like the 98-pound weakling story.
No, I was when I was 16.
Of course,
but that summer I grew to 6'1", and my frame filled out, but I was still 160 pounds because I was a basketball player and a high jumper. But as I graduated from high school, I started training, and my body grew like crazy.
See, I mean, for me, it's a different, I always tell the story. Like, of course, I picked up books at 12, and I saw Chris Dickerson. I saw
that my mom's roommates had those.
So
as well.
That was like the 82 Olympia, and I actually got so much recognition being a youngster because I was super active and I did the concrete at 11 that I remember, everyone used to say, man, if you actually worked out, your body could be that much better. Because I was pretty lean and muscular. And there was this kid, Jeff, that worked out. I wonder if he ever listens to this podcast. And he took me to the Gold's Gym when I was 15. And he was 17. He was a senior. I was a freshman or something. He was in Yeah, he was like, I was a freshman. I think he was a senior. But he took me to like this Gold's Gym in Leominster, Mass. And I remember he was pretty jacked. I mean, he was natural, whatever. I'm sure like back then I thought everyone was way bigger. And I walked in that gym and I remember seeing all these big guys and like the training regimen. He took me like 8 o'clock at night. And I was like, man, this is great. And, you know, I just toyed with the weights in high school. But I just wanted to be bigger because I thought, man, like I get its attention now. What's it going to do?
Yeah.
And then I got, you know, as I started college, it was like I had this goal in my mind to be a bodybuilder, but the progress was so great. And I felt so good being in the gym. And I felt like this is the only time I ever felt like I had positive direction in my life. Like I was kind of given the task of being a concrete worker for my family. And I didn't really have anything that I was doing for myself. This was for my family, like my brothers, my father, they all pushed me to work in the concrete. So when I found bodybuilding, and I played football because my best friend from high school, like he coaxed me into like going into football. He's like, you'd be a great football player. You should do it. But it really wasn't my passion. So when I found the weights, I'm like, damn, I really like this.
Yeah.
I like being in the gym. I like getting under the weight. I like feeling strong, and I like the progress. And I think that's really, for the first time, I felt like, okay, I'm achieving something that I love to do. And I think that's really what made the difference for me. And ever since, like, you know, I say this all the time, all the business I've done and travel and everything else, dude, I still love the gym more than anything. I just told someone that, like Nick Walker, I told this to. I said, dude, all I like to do is really work out. Like, it's, you know, I try to want to golf and, you know, play tennis or do other sports. And I'm like, you know what? Because I can do all this stuff now being retired. I'm a lot smaller and I'm more agile, but at the same time, I'm like, I find myself in the gym.
We need to do, like Bo knows, we need to do Jay knows. We need to start having you play ping pong and golf and stuff and film it.
Well, it's kind of funny. We had this, we'll just talk about it quick before we get out, but we had this network kind of reach out and to do this project.
Yeah.
And what did I say as soon as you brought it up to me?
So I get this email from a very well-known network.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we want to talk about Jay about doing this celebrity thing, blah, blah, blah. And you say to me, it's the wrong Jay Cutler. Yeah. Because this has happened so many times. So I hit him back. I'm like, you sure this is the right Jay Cutler? Like, yeah. So I finally get on a call with him today. And 3 minutes into the call, she's like, oh, man, I'm such a, you know, this network here, we're such a huge fan of football. And I'm going, oh, no.
Here we go
again. So I'm like, right in the middle, I said, hey, I don't mean to cut you off, but you have the right Jay Cutler? She's like, I said, you know, there's two, right? And she got real quiet. Then she's like, the football player? I said, wrong one.
I said this. Remember when you called me and you said, you know, you spilled out a little bit of the details and you were like, this is a really great opportunity. And
and I was like,
you know, it's kind of funny. And you must kind of think in your head because like in our world, like my name is big, right?
Yeah.
And whenever you throw a large opportunity, I always question, right?
Yeah.
You call me the voice of doom.
You're the voice of doom.
You know, that's my logic, man, because I think it's just like when I trained for Olympias, like I prepared for the victory and the loss.
Yeah.
And then there was like a super in between, like I'm thinking loss like second. Well, what happens if I get fifth or 10th, you know? Or I don't make it to the show.
I'm going to take this part and I'm going to note this and I'm going to email it to them.
So I always have like this very positive Jay, but the
voice of doom.
I've got to be prepared for failure or defeat or disappointment, right?
Yeah.
So I always have that weighed out. So I know that must drive you crazy sometimes because you're like,
it's okay,
dude, stop. Like you just take it as it is because I'm like, you'll be like, yeah, man, I got this trip. And I'm like, we're not going there. Stop lying. Like, it ain't going to happen.
And it happens.
Yeah,
and then
every time.
It always happens. Every time you're like, I can't believe you pulled that off.
But I say, if I say it's not going to happen, it usually happens.
Yeah.
So now I say, you're full of shit. You know, make sure you bleep that, by the way, because we'll get edited.
I think we're allowed 2 cuss words.
Okay. I was watching Dave Palumbo's show and they started cursing last night, and he's like, "Stop swearing, you know."
I know, because one of our biggest videos got demonetized recently because there was too many. So I'm like, it wasn't even that many.
Well, you got to go in and edit the swears, I guess.
Well, I can't go back and edit. It's been up for a month. You know. But no, that I'm gonna take this point and I'm gonna note that and I'm gonna email it to this network and I'm gonna say, hey, here's the real one. I actually said to him, I said, well, if you want the more famous Jay, we can still talk. But I still spoke to him for like 15 minutes because they have a lot of other
opportunity.
It's the biggest network out there, and they have a lot of other things that they're working on. So I'm sure we'll make something happen.
Yeah, so we'll have an update. We're gonna head to New York this weekend, guys. We do have a very special podcast launching next week.
Yep.
And then, of course, we're going to do our build up for the Arnold. We got to get Milos back on as we get a little closer, get a little insight on what's happening with his.
Yeah.
With his.
Like I
Samson.
said, like I was talking about earlier, I can't remember a show that I've ever like looked at that has this many variables. And one of the other things too, I was thinking about this last night. You know, I never make predictions. Like I'll say, like on paper this should happen,
you made predictions,
or this is what this is what I think the judges
will
made.
choose, yeah.
But I never personally make one because there are a million variables that can go wrong, and we know this. Every person would have said Rami's going to win. He was off a little bit, and he didn't. But why was he off? It could have been this. No matter what, you can have this lineup, and you could say Nick's going to win or Andrew's going to win. There's a million variables that can happen the night before. You could have a crazy neighbor in your hotel room that's banging on the wall, and it could keep you up and it could affect you. You could have something happen in your family. You could have a relationship issue. You could have a financial issue. You could eat something wrong and get diarrhea. There's so many things that could go wrong that even the best person could be off a little bit, and something could go right for a guy, and he could come.
That's
and beat
what
you.
the contests are about.
That's why I love this show, because even though Nick is the person that is the front runner, but there's a lot of guys that are right one step back that could beat him.
Yeah, that
if
in a year or two, maybe.
You know, and you'll hear people say, "Well, so and so's they're more consistent." You can be consistent every time. All it takes is one time to be off, just once. So it's exciting that this show has so many variables.
We'll have a lot of build up to it, and I want to shout out to Celsius because we always get surprises, and this is a flavor of this Fuji apple pear. I have not tried. This is the first time, and I'm actually going to try it on air, but I want to shout out to Celsius, our partner.
This looks like a marketing commercial right here.
I know, but I haven't tried this yet. Wow, this is actually really good. I've been drinking the grape and the cola. I'm waiting for them to ship me the cola. So in the meantime...
you see Derek Farnsworth
he
tagged us.
He goes,
I finally found the cola.
Shout out to Derek Farnsworth. Where did he find it? In San Diego somewhere?
He tagged us and said,
this is really good, though. So shout out to Fuji Apple Pear. Shout out to Celsius. But we'll be back for another rundown.
We're going to launch a special one next week, and then the week after we'll do one earlier in the week because Regan and I head the week after to Korea.
Okay.
So, and that will have some... Hopefully,
we appreciate all the comments, guys. You want to put some insight why you started training. I know we both got into that a little bit. I don't know if we talked about that in episodes. We want to thank you guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and more importantly, keep following the next edition of our Cutler Cast. We are out.